my Wednesday lives. I'm going to call this a Wednesday ramble, um, hump day ramblings, right? So I, man, I wanted to make content Monday. I wanted to make content Tuesday. My mind has been swimming since Sunday and Monday with just things that have been progressing, things that have been happening. And I want to share this with you because I'm a little bit excited, but my heart is also a little broken at the same time. So stick with me on this, folks. And just for the record, like it says in the notes there, this is completely my unqualified opinion, my absolute unqualified theory, if we will. Um, I'm old, so let's go back to. I'm 58, so let's go back to the 70s. Let's go back to the 80s, and think about what life was really like. Like, I try to think about this. I try to think about it with a very open mind. I try not to be. This isn't a battle to see who had it worse. Just for the record, not a battle to see who had it worse. I won't give you a whole ton of details, but let's just say family is a little dysfunctional. Okay. Mom worked as a nurse. My dad was a machinist. My parents split when I was 6. My baby sister was a baby when they split up, and childhood basically disappeared. There were things I did as a kid. Like, I can look back and go, oh, I remember that. That was crazy. I remember that. That was crazy. That was cool. That was fun. So I can remember there was a certain aspect of childhood that was there, but there was also a very large section of childhood that was erased. Okay. So, and I wanted to think about this, like some of my best memorable moments were those quiet times. I can remember being really sad, and riding my bike down to the elementary school at the end of our neighborhood, and just hanging out there on the swings, just as a kid, hanging out there by myself, uh, being in my own feelings, and figuring things out. That's what I remember. I remember being older. I remember being 16, 17 years old and being able to ride my motorcycle, because I had a motorcycle as a kid. I remember being able to ride my motorcycle. By the way, I paid for that. I don't want you to think I was some spoiled kid. My family, I couldn't afford a car. So here comes the honest part. Why is Kurt so much into motorcycles? Kurt is so much into motorcycles because he couldn't afford a dang car. This is back when a motorcycle was $400 or $500, and insuring that motorcycle for a year was $60. Right. And then if I would have had my driver's license in a car, it would have been like $60 or $70 a month for insurance, which I pardon me, I couldn't do. So for the first 5 years that I drove, I just had a motorcycle. That's what I did. Rain, snow, sleet, hail, ice, didn't matter. Motorcycle. I used to take that motorcycle and go to like George Washington, where George Washington Crossing was over the Delaware. There's the nice like a secondary highway there, and a real quiet place in the woods. I would just park there, and I would just sit there and think, and I would work things out. I wouldn't use the word depressed. Like, I'm sad. I got a lot on my mind. I got to go work that out. And I'd go find a quiet space. I was trying, and this is why this is on my mind, folks. I want you to stick with me here. I'm very involved at church, especially with the college age kids. I really think that more older people should invest in this age group. This is our future, right? And so I try to spend a fair amount of time with these college age kids. And we have had an unbelievable year. We just had our last session for the semester. We're going to take off until January, so I'm not going to see these kids for a month. But we have had an unbelievable semester with these college kids in our church group. We got about 130, 140 kids that show up on a weekly basis, and I get to know a bunch of them. I probably know 100 of them by name, and they come and go. It's a community college in our area, so they come and go quickly. We don't get a whole lot of time to build relationships with them. It's not a 4-year program. It's typically 2. And so we get to work with these kids. And when I say work, I'm just hanging out. I'm not preaching. I'm not leading studies. we have the young people do that. Like the young people run it, and just a few of us adults are there to kind of help, right? To kind of help and assist and push things along. And we have seen an unbelievable amount of them get baptized this year. To me, I've been a member of other churches where the number of baptisms out of this college group um, would dwarf the number of baptisms other churches have as a whole church for a year. It's amazing to me, and how strong they are in their faith and their recollection and their scripture. Like, you ask them, hey, could you quote the Roman road to me? And they can get 3 out of 4 of the verses right and get it right to you. They can quote you out of James. They can quote you out of Psalms. They can quote you out of Proverbs. These kids are really coming on strong, and that's where I'm excited. That's where I'm like, wow, like we're making an impact. We're doing something. We feel good about this, right? Like this is a great moment. With all of these distractions and competing religions and all of this stuff in the space, to be a Christian man in the space and be able to add value to young people at the level that we're doing here, it's phenomenal. It's a really great deal. And I'm not making this a commercial for this church. I just want to say this is why I'm excited, and this is what I've been doing with my time, and this is the fruit that we're seeing. Like we recognize people by their fruit, and so this is the fruit. And again, I am not responsible for this. I'm not doing this. This is God doing His work. It is. I'm there to see it. I'm there to help. I'm there to put in some time, but it's not me. So I got to be very, very clear about this. It's not me. And I don't run the program. Someone else runs the program. I just help. That's all I do. I just show up, I help, I put in the time. That's it. So no pat on the back for me. But to see the results has been phenomenal. Now let me get to the heartbreaking part of it, and why I started out with what I did about, hey, I used to have some sad moments. At our church, when someone gets baptized, there's a testimonial that is typically read. So it'll be like, hey, this is Emma Sue, right? Emma Sue went to church as a kid, strayed away, came back, loves God, getting baptized. Do you accept that Christ died for you and your sins and He's coming back to save us? Yes, I do. Dead to sin, raised to life, right? The baptism thing happens. But let me dive a little deeper. A lot of these testimonials, not all, I got to be careful, not all, but a lot of these testimonials have things in there that talk about addictions, abusive relationships, suicidal thoughts, failed suicide attempts, anxiety, depression. Now, the terms anxiety and depression, I have heard those used more and more and more and more and more than I could ever think was ever possible. When we used to live in California, almost every young person we ran into was like, "Oh, I suffer from anxiety," and I was like, I guess if you're suffering from anxiety, everybody does. Like, I don't know why this is, trauma. Oh my God, I've got trauma. I would hear this all the time, and I was like, this is crazy. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. And then I got more involved with this college group, and I hear people talk about trauma, anxiety, depression. What's happening? On the surface level, we would say, on the surface level, let me be very clear. These are unqualified opinions, unqualified theories. I put it right in the title, okay? Unqualified theories. I think back to my childhood. I was raised by drunks. I was raised by abusive people. I was in a situation that was uncannily unnatural, like not the way a child should be raised. And my sister, oh my God, she was a baby when my parents split up, and we saw and witnessed incredibly bad decisions by adults firsthand our whole childhood. So when I look at this, when I left, so I went to 2 high schools. I went to Bishop McDevitt High School, and I went to Abington High School. I went to Abington High School for the last couple of months. I didn't even finish the last month there. I think I just stopped going, right? Um, when I went to Bishop McDevitt High School, I got called in by the disciplinarian and was fired as a student because I was behind on my tuition. Meanwhile, they were busing all kinds of kids in for free, but I didn't fit a certain demographic. So I was behind on tuition, and my parents were drunk and irresponsible. So they weren't going to pay for my tuition. I had been paying my own tuition, but during that time in my life, I had also been paying my mother's mortgage and utility bills, and was not the most responsible kid with finances, to be honest with, anyway. Because like if I saw a Mountain Dew and wanted it, I bought it. If I worked, I was a workaholic from a very young age. So if I needed money, I could go get the money, right? But we didn't have a conversation at my school about you need to go get the money. Instead, they waited. They waited and they waited and they waited. And then they called me into a room, just me and the disciplinarian, just one other adult in the room. This is back before, they had accountability for adults working with children. And he said, hey, we're going to fire you. You're going to be dismissed from school. See you. Have a nice life. And I said, that doesn't make any sense. And he said, well, honestly, we just don't want a kid like you here anyway. And okay, that's a weird thing to say. And then as I was leaving, he said, a kid like you is never going to amount to anything in life anyway. That's the last thing a grown adult said to me before I left a school and had to go figure things out. So, of course, I go home and I tell my mom I got fired from high school. She freaks out. She wants to throw me out of the house because I'm incorrigible. I wasn't that bad of a kid. So I had to go live with my dad for a bit and then go to this Abington High School. Living with dad was about 5 times worse than living with mom. I had a lot of freedoms. I got to have a lot of fun, but it was not a good path. Not a good path. All right. Ended up being homeless for a while. Made some really bad decisions. Apparently, I was trying to prove that disciplinarian right. Okay. Now, don't feel sorry for me. Don't feel sorry for me, because as you've seen through life, if you followed my lives at all, if you followed any of my socials, I've got 2 books published. I've worked, at a high level at some pretty large corporations. I run my own agency now. There's nothing there. There's some baggage maybe that comes along every now and then, but all in all, I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. So let's not again, no pity parties. I'm going back in time and I'm saying, this is what I came from. This is what I came from. And did I have some sad moments? Yes. Did I have a suicidal thought every now and then? Yeah, maybe, but doesn't everybody? I don't know, right? But then to hear these young people in mass, these young people that on the surface have it okay. You got a decent car to drive. You got a roof over your head. You got a TV in your bedroom. When I was growing up, if you had a TV, you were doing okay. If your family had a TV, you were doing okay. If you were connected to Comcast, because I'm from Philadelphia, like when Comcast first came out, if you had Comcast, you were rich. Like, nobody had cell phones. Nobody was connected all over the place. Internet, was the internet invented then? Yeah, like people will tell you the internet was invented way back when for the government. That doesn't mean we had it in our houses. We didn't have personal computers at our houses. I think I had a Commodore VIC-20 when I was a sophomore or a junior in high school, something like that. I think we got a Commodore VIC-20, something like that. So on the surface, when we take a look at how these young people live, people like me that grew up in the 70s and the 80s and saw this transition to technology, we see it like they have every advantage in the world. They have every advantage in the world. So what are they bemoaning? What are they so freaking unhappy about? And you see people my age go, what are you complaining about? Just get moving. Go do something. Go do something. And we're tempted to be like that. And then I have this unique perspective because I'm one of these older people that intentionally spends time with younger people that aren't my own children, right? And they're in a positive environment, okay? So I'm not at a detention center. I'm not at jail. I'm not in the school system with general population, right? I'm in a church. I'm in a church with supposedly people that are going in a purposely going in a direction. So one of the things I love about working with the college group is these college kids, they're there by choice. Like their parents don't make them go. They're old enough, right? So they make their own decision to be there and they're there. That means they chose it. And it makes the dynamic completely different than say working with like middle school and high school kids at church. So when I'm working with the college kids, they made the choice. They're there. They're on point. They're focused. Self-improvement's a big issue. But when we talk to them, when we work with them, and when we hear their testimonies from baptism, we hear about these horribly hurtful, broken, emotionally deprived lives. People that are, they describe trauma, and to me, it's not traumatic. That doesn't mean it's not trauma to them. It's trauma to them for some reason. And I started to explore this with a couple of the students this week because she had put her testimony out there and was pretty transparent about some things. And so I said, hey, I really appreciate you. I know other people are like to hear that. They're not alone. People that, maybe they're fearful that they're alone in this world or that they have their own challenges. I'm thankful that you put that out there. And she says, oh, well, thanks. I was really nervous about saying it out loud, but now that I did, I feel relieved, And another student was there. And so we're having this conversation. And I said, I just got to be honest with you. Growing up the way that I did for my age, I didn't have the opportunity to say I'm depressed or I'm anxious. I didn't have the opportunity to do that. I just had to figure it out. I just had to figure it out. I just had to get over it. I just had to get over it and figure it out and move on. And I say things a lot to I say things to my daughter, to my son, to peers in my WordPress space. Sometimes I'm like, I just don't know what to do. I just don't think there's anything to do. I think we're kind of stuck. And I'm like, well, failure is not an option. Failure is not an option. You have to find a way to succeed. If you don't succeed, what comes next? Homelessness, starvation? You don't have a choice to fail. I mean, you can fail at little things, tweak your plan, tweak your strategy, and find success in some other channel. Yeah, absolutely. But that's what I'm talking about. As a person, you have to figure it out. And so I'm standing there talking to these students, and it's slowly hitting me because they go, well, I think it's the phones, which is so funny, right? Young people who are completely addicted to these things, they'll go, oh, I think it's the phones. Okay, well, if you think it's the phone, turn it off. Just turn it off. And so here is something interesting. My son went to summer camp last year, and he volunteered at a summer camp in Colorado. And he couldn't have the phone with him all week. So they give him the phone on the weekend, but he couldn't have the phone with him all week when he was working with other younger students. When we talked to him on the weekends, he was noticeably happier than when he has his phone full time. And we've done this before as parents where we're like, oh, you missed the grade here. You got to give us your phone for a week. During that week, wonderful child. Give him the phone back. Now you get the grunts. Yeah, whatever. The phone is a problem. The phone's a problem. But is it the phone? That's like saying get rid of guns because guns kill people. And then people go, well, guns don't kill people. People kill people. Phones don't make you stupid, crazy, and anxious, right? But your use of the phone can make you stupid, angry, and anxious. So as I'm talking to these two younger students, it starts to hit me, wait a minute. Now you have a nice car. You have a TV in every bedroom in your house, plus the living room. Everyone's connected to an iPad or a tablet and a phone. Everybody has a computer that they use. Everybody is constantly connected to all these people. Here's one of the things I thought about. When I was upset as a young person, when I told you I would go find a quiet place to get in my thoughts, right? Maybe I was at the playground at the school at the end of the street when I was young. As I got older, it was that quiet place in the woods at George Washington's Crossing. Valley Forge Park used to be one of my favorite places to just go and sit. I used to go to Valley Forge Park and just go and sit and be quiet, figure things out. I didn't have the ability, like if I was upset about something, I didn't have the ability to do what I'm doing right now with you. I'm reaching out to the internet and I'm connecting with a couple hundred people that might have comments, that might have, they're going to share their energy with me, good or bad. They're going to share their energy with me. They're going to say, right on, I know what you're talking about. I get it, blah, blah, blah. Let's, fight the powers that be. I didn't have that. As a kid, I'm old. I didn't have that. I had quiet space to go get through my thoughts and figure it out. And I had a handful of friends, a handful. That's it, right? I didn't have hundreds of strangers that I called friends on the internet. That's a very confusing thing. That's a very confusing thing to someone like me. Hundreds of friends, right? Oh, I got plenty of friends. Okay, great. Let's get them together for a barbecue. Oh, well, none of them live here. None of them are here. I've never met them in person. They're not friends. They're people. They're acquaintances. They're contacts. They're followers, but they're not friends. And these young people are getting all of this mixed up, confused, and miscombobulated. So if you're a young person and you get upset about something and you post online about being upset about something, you get all this energy back, especially if you're female. Especially if you're female, you get all this energy back online. You should this, you should that. I agree. Amen, sister. You tell them, blah, blah, blah. And then it can start to degenerate and go bad, right? You should do this. You should do that. You should do this. You should, right? And then people start having these negative thoughts and these bad feelings, and this anxiety starts to build up. It's crazy. I go back to, I had a simple, although not positive, I had a simple life. I had a handful of friends. If something went wrong at my house, I could talk to my friend John or I could talk to Charlie. That was it. My sounding board was John or Charlie. Every now and then I'd have a girlfriend. Maybe I'd talk to the girlfriend about it. But you know what? I didn't really want to share bad things with my girlfriend. I wanted to enjoy good times with my girlfriends. So I think about the way that kids communicate now. I think about the networks they create for themselves. I think about the phones and the TVs and the constant media barrage. We had ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS, and that was it, right? Unless you were rich and you had Comcast, then you had MTV. And even on Comcast, you had like 2 or 3 movie channels, and I think you got CNN or something. I think that was it. There was not a lot to choose from. Now, kids don't take the opportunity. I got to be clear the way I phrase this. I don't see young people taking the opportunity to turn off the noise. Turn off the computer, turn off the TV, turn off the phone, read a book, write in a journal, ride your bicycle to a park. If you have a motorcycle or a car, take it somewhere, to a mountain, to a stream, to a lake, to a pond, by yourself, in the quiet, no radio, no TV, no phone, no tablet, and just chill and think things out. Think things out. Think it through. If that creates anxiety just thinking about doing that, then chances are you need to do that as quickly as possible. People my age, you'll hear us a lot talk about going camping or going to the river or going to the mountains. I think a lot of where that comes from is what I'm describing. It's, we had those quiet moments in our past, and we're thinking fondly of recreating those quiet moments. Running Mañana No Mas, and this is where I'm going to be very transparent. Running Mañana No Mas since 2008 has not been smooth. I've had corporate jobs in between. I have rebooted the agency a couple of times. I make probably 5 podcasts a week. I do public speaking. I do corporate training. I have my own one-on-one coaching. We obviously run a WordPress-based IT agency where we do WordPress and other projects. So I got to be clear about that. We do other projects. So there's a lot of spinning plates, right? There's a lot of things going on. And every now and then, I just need to take those quiet moments. I usually do this in the morning. No computer, no TV, no phone. I usually read a little bit of scripture. Sometimes that's with my wife. And then I do have a tablet. It's not connected to any apps or anything like that. I use the Remarkable tablet. It's distraction free. Writing in that tablet is like having a paper notebook. I open that up. I have a journal in there. Sometimes I make some notes in the journal. I plan my day before I execute my day. So I plan my day on this, and it acts like paper and pen, but it's a tablet. It acts like paper and pen. I write it down. I write these things down. I process physically and mentally. I'm planning. What's my day going to look like? What am I going to do today? And I plan that. I write it all out. I think, again, unqualified theories. I think that moment that I take, absent of electronic influence, I think that moment that I take sets me for the rest of my day. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm the governor of California. Okay. But what I'm saying is when I take that moment in the morning, I believe the absence of media, the absence of electronic interruption, the absence of constant distraction, I believe that centers me for the rest of my day. To the point that, like, today's a great example of this. My wife texts, my daughter texts, my daughter called, my sister called on the messenger thing with the video, and a client that I work with all called, like within a half hour, 45 minutes. It was one after the other. Bing, 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 bing. Distraction, 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 distraction. If I didn't take that quiet time in the morning to plan my day, to actually know what was on my schedule and be like present. It's one thing to look at your calendar and Google Calendar and be like, oh, that's my schedule, right? It's one thing to go, there's my schedule, compared to writing it out and thinking about what your day is going to look like. There's a difference in that. There's a very tangible difference in the results of doing that. And when I take the time and I do things like I do, when those distractions happen, right? Boom, text message, call, like all these things are coming through. When you take the time, that quiet time in the morning to plan your day and then execute your day, when those distractions happen, it doesn't create anxiety. They're just things that happen throughout the day, but it doesn't create a sense of anxiety. Whereas if I don't do that, again, I'm being very transparent here, unqualified theory. If I don't take the time to do that, and I just try to stumble into my day and just start executing, and like reminders are going off saying, oh, you've got a meeting in half an hour. Like, oh crap, I better review the notes for that. That creates anxiety. Not the anxiety that they're talking about when they're getting baptized and they want to commit suicide. Like, that's not that level of anxiety, but it's the same word. It's the same word. So again, I'm incredibly excited about the growth in faith and the young people at our church that are coming to Christ. And I'm extremely excited that I get to play in that playground. I'm extremely excited that we're seeing so many wins in the space. At the same time, I'm heartbroken because for some reason, while things on the surface look better, it's actually worse for young people. We think about finances, we think about the economy. We can look back and go, relative cost, right? So how many dollars would it have taken to become a homeowner in 1980? How many dollars does it take to become a homeowner in 2025? And we can look at that and go, oh my God, no wonder these people are depressed and upset. Yeah, there's stress, right? But that's like what I was talking about earlier. When I was young, what was the difference between buying a house in 1970 and buying a house in 1995? What was the difference between going to college in 1970 and trying to go to college in the year 2000? Okay, so what's the difference between going to college in the year 2000 and going to college in the year 2025? We're going to see. Everyone goes, well, it's exponentially more expensive. Yes, but we're going to see that growth plate is kind of, I don't want to say consistent, because in a lot of cases it's not. But when we weren't connected to all of this stuff, and when we didn't have big pharma pumping drugs into our bloodstreams, we were able to get over it. We were able to take a quiet moment, figure things out, get over it, get a plan, execute. And that's where I'm going with this. I have not trusted the medical field since I had cancer as a kid. They messed me up so bad trying to treat me for what I consider to be a simple case of cancer. Um, oh my goodness. And so I swore off the medical field for decades. I mean, if you thought I was going to take some experimental vaccine during the pandemic, you had lost your freaking mind. No one in my family's been vaccinated. We are not doing that. Like normal vaccines, like for kids and childbirth, we were kind of like, okay, that's a good parenting. We're in for that. But this COVID thing, nothing about the way they handled COVID made any sense to me. And so I wasn't going to do that. And people in my family were not going to participate. Okay. Now I take a look at how I feel about that, and then I take a look at how we see. So I might have adult ADD. Maybe I do. Listen to me talk. I'm all over the place. I might have adult ADD, but I'm sure as heck not going to take medication for it. When you see the side effects of SSRIs, and the side effect of an SSRI is homicidal and suicidal thoughts. Well, wait a minute. I thought you were taking this for depression and anxiety. But the side effect is homicidal and suicidal thoughts? Well, that doesn't sound like it's fixing anything. It sounds like it's making it exponentially worse. You went from having a bad day to wanting to kill somebody, and you think that that's a good thing? So I am not into any of this. None of it. Again, unqualified theory. You take someone that has an unbelievable connection to strangers all over the world that they treat as friends, and then you medicate them and you give them substances that change the way they look and feel and react to things. And we wonder why they're so screwed up. One of the girls I spoke to on Monday, who had given her testimony for a baptism and talked about horrific ideas and thoughts, she said, yeah, I went to the doctor, and as soon as I said, I think I have problems with anxiety, he didn't ask me any other questions. He just wrote me a prescription. He didn't ask me any other questions. He just wrote me a prescription. And so I think about that experience, and I think about other people reporting the same type of experience to me, and it just makes me feel like sick on the inside. That the idea that they're going to get commissions or bonuses based on how many prescriptions they can write for all of these horrible, horrible drugs for people that really don't need them. When I think about the side effects, the societal repercussions, and the things that happen, I really do blame Big Pharma for a lot of that. Again, unqualified theories, my personal thoughts. I think when you take the Big Pharma puzzle piece and you put it into the same puzzle with social media, phones, tablets, TVs in every room, never being disconnected from mass media, I think when you do that to a younger brain, you take away their ability, and this is where I'm going to end this. I think you take away their ability to find a quiet space, to get in their own thoughts, and to figure it out. And when we take away people's, I know there's a word for it, I want to say it's autonomy, but it's we take away their value. When somebody doesn't have the ability to get in their own thoughts and figure it out, they feel very trapped. Whatever the situation is that would come my way, and again, I came from not a great situation. Whatever the situation was that came my way, I was able to sit and think and get in my thoughts, strategize, figure it out. Now, in my case, I moved. I went from Pennsylvania to Colorado. I met my wife. We went to New Mexico, from New Mexico to California. Now we're in Kansas. I mean, I spent decades maybe running away from my problems. Who knows? Who knows? Okay. But I was able to get in my thoughts, figure it out, strategize, execute. And I think that level of agency, that level of self actualization is very healing. And I think when we talk about all those puzzle pieces I mentioned, big pharma, social media, phones, tablets, computers, TVs, mass media, when we put all those puzzle pieces together, it creates an atmosphere, it creates a situation where these young people don't have that self agency. And I think that amplifies and increases the anxiety and the depression and the horrible thoughts. And if they don't have a savior like Christ that came and died for us and laid down his life so that we might have eternity with him, if you don't have that and you're trying to depend on yourself, I don't think you're going to win. I don't think you're going to win. That's it, folks. It's just kind of where I'm at today. Half hour with me. Hump Day Ramblings. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.